Hi, this is Chico Resch. You are listening to the Let's Go Devils podcast on the Primetime Radio Network.
Happy Devils Monday. This is Game Day Live, coming to you live from the Primetime Radio studios in beautiful New Jersey and Chicago, Illinois, as the Devils are taking on the New York Rangers tonight at Madison Square Garden. Streaming live on Facebook Live, YouTube Live, Twitter Live, and Twitch on the Let's Go Devils Network. Vinnie, Parise of pucksandpitchforks.com. Hello, how are you, man?
I am doing great, Sam Wu. I love when the New Jersey Devils play the New York Rangers. I like talking junk online. I like tweeting mean things about teams I don't like. And this is exactly what we got going on today with the New Jersey Devils playing against those stinky New York Rangers. I will tell you this, my friend. When the Devils are better, it makes this rivalry better. When the Rangers are better, it makes this rivalry better. There was a couple years ago where they chanted, "We both suck. We both suck. I hated that. That made me want to run through a wall of disappointment when that was happening. I'm like, I don't want to chant something alongside New York Rangers fans. We do both suck. That year was brutal. That was one of my least favorite NHL seasons ever. The Rangers, they have rebuilt, but they rebuilt a little differently than the New Jersey Devils. The Devils are built on youth and speed and great defense using their youth and speed. The Rangers, their best players are all on the wrong side of 30. Their younger players, outside of Fox, Shesterkin doesn't count, he's a goalie. Outside of Fox, all of their younger skaters kind of haven't been what they thought. Oh, and Keandre Miller. I like Keandre Miller. But Alexis Lafreniere and Capo Caco, those guys haven't panned out to be what Jack Hughes and Nico Hischier became. They don't have a Jesper Bratt. Their great players are great players. Kreider, Panarin, Zibanejad for what's his name? Derek Brassard is one of the worst trades in the last NHL 15 years. People don't talk about that enough, but the Rangers, they're still good, even though the reason that they're good is a little bit different. And, you know, we remember 2012. That's one of the great Devils moments of all time when Adam Henrique scored in overtime to send those stinky Rangers back in. Devils go to the Stanley Cup final. They lost to the Kings, but this Devils-Rangers rivalry, it means a lot to me. It means a lot to you. I know you have I think you have a shirt or a sign that says Rangers suck, and it's the Rangers Shield logo. Everybody hates the Rangers on this side of the harbor, or this side of the river, I guess I should say. And, you know, yeah, I was looking for it. I couldn't find the sign behind you.
Well, my Andre Johnson jersey is actually covering it right now.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
okay.
that's why. And you know what? We'll get to him in a sec. You know, this rivalry, I mean, growing up in New Jersey back in the 80s, it was 1 to 20. For every Devils fan that was at school, in elementary school, there were about 20 Ranger fans. And it's not because the Rangers were any good. It was not because of anything. The only reason why is because Madison Square Garden Network was on basic cable. Most parents back in those days were a bunch of cheap asses, and they didn't pay for Sports Channel, which was $9.95 a month. Back in those days, that was a lot of money just to get a premium sports channel. So what did kids watch? They watched the Rangers, and they watched them lose royally with Kelly Kissio and Mike Gartner and, you know, all these players of the past. And, well, let's put it this way. Fast forward to now, you have a fan base that is now 40 years old. 40 years of existence, the New Jersey Devils was put into an area where you had to deal with what? The Rangers, the Flyers, the Islanders, and the Hartford Whalers, all within a 200-mile square foot radius where Brendan Byrne Arena was. So the Devils were at a disadvantage, plus they probably had to pay territorial rights, fees, whatever, just to get a team here. And since then, 3-1 in terms of Stanley Cups. I think that's pretty impressive since their existence against the New York Rangers. You know, a lot of the trash talking, I can't wait till they take the wrecking ball at Madison Square Garden, the world's most famous train station, and let the trash talking begin. I mean, the city wants to knock it down. They literally want to knock it down. They just haven't got there yet. And it's going to be knocked down. Where are the New York Rangers and New York Knicks going to play? They're probably going to be homeless. Or they probably will designate a spot in some part of New York City that nobody wants to go to. So, let the trash talking begin. But just let's talk about real trash talking. The Rangers cut corners here. Because if you remember, they sent out that letter to fans stating that we're going to rebuild.
We all remember the letter.
We're going to rebuild. We're going to rebuild. And I actually was getting scared because they were actually going to follow through. And then you got Tom Wilson that changed everything, and suddenly everything sped up. You put Chris Drury in. You fire John Davidson, they fired. I couldn't believe that. They put in Chris Drury, and last year, to their credit, they made it to the Eastern Conference Finals before they got kicked out by the Tampa Bay Lightning. And then you take that into consideration, and Shesterkin having one of these Hart Trophy seasons. And the one thing that we all questioned last season as Devils fans when our team sucked was, is the Rangers model really sustainable? Mortgaging the future for now when their foundation was not really based on a heroic performance by one of their goaltenders, Shesterkin. And it's been proven this year that Gallant, that's how he wants us to pronounce his last name, not Gallant, but Gallant, he is a kind of a couple years and then he's usually out. So now we're seeing the demise and the fall of the Rangers. Are still dangerous, in my opinion. You have to take these rivalries seriously. But the Devils didn't cut corners, and you, the Devils fan, win or lose tonight, you deserve this because you did not cut corners with this team. You suffered enough, and the next decade, possibly 15 years, could possibly be a dynasty. We don't know yet. But based on what we've seen so far this season, losing only 4 games up in this point, and 15 regulation wins, solid points, that's something to be said. And that's why I think a lot of us are not cocky but confident that win or lose, they're going to do very well at Madison Square Garden tonight.
You make some really good points. I was thinking about how I was going to respond to what you were saying, and the Devils almost tried to cut corners. You might remember when in the 2016-17 offseason, they did a couple things that were very reminiscent of what this New York Rangers team is doing. They still had Schneider, and I still think the fact that they had Schneider made them try to win way earlier than they should have. He was putting up Vezina caliber numbers, and people were like, they don't do anything to help this guy. Well, once they started to get a little bit better, he started to suck, and they were right back to square one going into 2017-18. And so They traded for Taylor Hall. They signed P.A. Parento off of waivers. Like, they just made a bunch of moves of guys who will come in and give decent enough production where you're not an abysmal team, and they still ended up winning a couple lotteries anyway, so I guess they lucked into that. But if this Rangers team didn't have Panarin and they didn't have Zibanejad, but Lafreniere and Kakko were point-per-game players like Hughes and Hischier, I think they would feel so much better about their team than they do right now, because even last year when they made it to the conference finals, in the first round they played the Pittsburgh Penguins, who by the end of that series, Louis Domingue, the third string, was playing. They couldn't. Jari was out after game 1. DeSmith got hurt in the second or third game, and then Louis Domingue played the rest of the series, and Crosby and Malkin still almost willed the Penguins to a victory in that series, and the Penguins won the games, or the Rangers won the game 7. And I'm trying to blank on who the Rangers played in the second round last year. It might have been Carolina. Yes. It was Carolina Hurricanes, and then the Carolina Hurricanes couldn't win a game on the road, so the Rangers and they finally got that game 7 win, the Rangers, and then they got to the Lightning and played a real team with a real goalie, and they got creamed. So I'm not certain. Listen, I love Fox. I think Fox, if I could pluck any defenseman off of a team and bring them to the Devils right now, it would either be Fox or McAvoy or Makar, one of those three. I mean, those three are just absolutely unbelievable. And so credit to them for that. Shesterkin, he's not having an MVP caliber goaltending season this year, but he's still got a .920 save percentage, under 3 goals against that. Like, he's been outstanding. The Rangers are just not – they're a good team. They're not a great team right now. And so the Devils have been a great team. You're going to Madison Square Garden tonight. It's a rivalry game. Those games are always different. The Rangers could be 0-15-5, and the Devils could be 18-4-0 or whatever they are. And the Rangers would still be dangerous in that game because it's a rivalry-type game. You never know how it's going to shake out. They're at home. They have a very dangerous power play. I love what they do with Fox on the back end, with Panarin on one half wall, making dishes like Nicholas Backstrom used to do. And then you got Zibanejad looking for one tease in the middle, and they throw Kreider in front of the net with whoever the H they want in the middle in the bumper position. It's an outstanding power play. You can't take penalties against them with regularity. But I'm excited for the way the Devils have won a lot of their games lately going into this Ranger game, because I think they can take a chunk out of the Rangers using their speed and their skill.
Yeah, and you know what? The lineup is going to change tonight. Nathan Bastian is going to be out for a significant amount of time with a shoulder or upper body injury, whatever you want to call it. And, you know, right now that's it's a concern of mine because we talk about beefalytics here on the podcast. You lose a big guy on the power play. You lose, you know, I would say a productive player to round up the 4 lines. And that's a concern of mine, but a couple players recalled. You got Kevin Ball. You have Alexander Holtz and Nico Dawes. I think Schmid is ill, sick or something like that, from what I read. I don't know if you can confirm that, Vinnie. But, you know, I just think right now it's going to be a pivotal point in the season because now you're playing, you know, the New York Rangers. Now, pound for pound, the Devils look fantastic. The Rangers at times look pretty sloppy. The collapse against Edmonton, that's not good. You would expect them to come out on all cylinders because you know what? You shouldn't lose those type of games. And again, without Bastian in the lineup, my concern is Jack Hughes and Nico Hischier. They're going to get banged up a little bit. But you know what? Everybody has their back now. You got the support of some of the other big guys like Miles Wood, Mikey McLeod, Holla is one of those players that will stick up for you. Brendan Smith, if he's in the lineup, if Ball's in the lineup, you got some size. You got to get some grit. And you know what? Just keep in mind the Devils did a lot so far without Palat. This whole time they've been without Palat. Only lost 1 game. So they've been through this scenario before. I would say Palat's a more significant figure than Nathan Bastian, but Nathan Bastian fills a role. I'm interested to see how the Devils respond to some of the physicality because the Rangers, they do have some gritty players in their lineup, and will they try to throw them off their game on that terrible Madison Square Garden ice?
Yeah, and let's not forget they traded Revo. Ryan Reeves is a member of the Minnesota Wild now. So it's not like he's going to be out there banging bodies and stuff. They got Vanacek in net. You are correct. Nico Dawes is the backup because Akira Schmid is hurt or sick, rather. And other than that, it's the exact same lineup minus Bastian. Alexander Holtz is on his spot on the 4th line, except instead of playing with McLeod and Wood, he's playing with Boquist and Sharangovich, which is a very interesting speed – well, not really speed for Holtz, but a more skillful – 4th line that has 2 snipers on it with a good playmaker in the middle in Boquist, and he's starting to play a little bit better lately. He might be the one who actually comes out of the lineup when Palat comes back. He'd be my pick to be the one who comes out. Certainly not Zetterlund after the way he's played. And Zetterlund played good with McLeod and Wood on the 4th line when Bastian got hurt in their most recent game. So that's actually on the 3rd line on paper today. You got Holla and Mercer playing with Hughes on the 2nd line, and then Jesper Blatt and Tomas Tatar on the top line with Nico Hischier. So it's going to be interesting to see how they go. No Ball. Smith is on the 3rd pair with Severson. Obviously, Marino Graves on the 2nd pair. And then Siegenthaler, Hamilton, the top pair. But it's a good group. They have depth in the organization now for the first time in a long time. When a guy like Nathan Bastian gets hurt, like you said, McLeod, Wood, even a guy like Nico Hischier, Nico Hischier is a skill player, but make no mistake about it, he'll get in anyone's face and give him a shove. We remember his NHL debut. I will never forget it as long as I live. It was a day game against the Colorado Avalanche, and one of their scumbag players hit Kyle Palmieri in the knee. And who was there to the rescue? Rookie first overall pick, Nico Hischier, defending his teammates. So as skillful as he is, his 200-foot game needs to have some grit to it, and he's nobody to mess with. So... And listen, you're Jack Hughes. You're playing on a line with Mercer and Haula, not the most physically imposing people of all time, but Mercer has a little bit of something going on there where he's a little rascal out there. Is a good way to describe him. He's a little rascal. And then Eric Haula, he's been around the league. He's been on the Boston Bruins, the Vegas Golden Knights, and the Minnesota Wild. 3 teams I don't actually consider to be like lovely to play against teams throughout, the last 10 years or so. They're hard physical teams always, and Hollow was a part of all 3. So, and I'm pretty sure he had a cup of coffee with the Florida Panthers and the Hurricanes or something like that. One of the 2 maybe, I don't remember. But it's not the worst line to be a part of as a skill player. The Rangers are certainly going to try and take their hits, but we've seen a lot of teams try and get their hits. Even a team like Washington, Alexander Ovechkin is one of the greatest hitting skill players of all time. And, you have to watch out for that team no matter what. TJ Oshie was real feisty. So that's going to happen every game. The Devils have a target on their back. They're tops of the Metro. And when you're playing your rival, stuff like that's going to happen. It's up to them to, take care of it. And it'd be nice to see a nice, clean refereed game today, too. We haven't had one of those in a while. The Capitals and the Buffalo Sabres didn't love the way those games were reffed on their side. And then, of course, we know about the debacle that happened with the Devils against the Leafs a couple days ago, but we'll see what happens.
Yeah, and you know what? The Devils are mature enough right now. I'm confident that they're not going to worry about officiating and replay and BS like that. But they will be going into a hostile crowd, you would assume, at Madison Square Garden. The Ranger fans, I'm hoping that some of the Devils fans are going to invade, show their support in their building tonight. And I'll tell you, what I love about this rivalry is in the past, I mean, it was really ugly. Like, it was a lot of bad blood. The all-out brawl back in, I think, 92, Devils Rangers, and Martin Brodeur was a rookie, I believe, that year. And I believe he may have been on the bench that game, where Scott Stevens and all that, they were all fighting on the benches, and it was just, the rivalry. And then 94, which probably propelled the Devils into a stratosphere, because after that they won 3 cups. Learning, sometimes you need that hard loss in order to move forward, and that unbeaten streak between 97 and 2001. I remember going to every Devils Rangers game during that time, Vinny. That was the best streak ever. It was either a tie or a win, nothing in between. I remember going to a December 23rd game, Devils Rangers at Madison Square Garden, and I remember I thought I was going to die that night, literally, because I had a buddy of mine had some beer, and at Madison Square Garden, we're talking about 20 years ago, the beer cups were so flimsy that he had one beer cup, and it was full of beer, and he's just holding it, and literally, no joke, he didn't squeeze it. The bottom actually fell out, and the beer splattered a mom right in front of him, all these Ranger fans, and they were so pissed. And I was like, crap, now we're going to have to get in a fight. This was a total accident. And my friend apologized, and he was just about to get his butt kicked in, and then he finally went up to the lady, I am so sorry. I'll give you money. I'm really sorry. And then suddenly things stopped when he said, I'll give money, because I've never heard that. Somebody pleading for their life, at a Devils Rangers game. I'll give money, and then suddenly it stopped. But they were grumpy the entire game. And then I remember going in my Marty Brodeur gear to Madison Square Garden inside. If you want to hear stories about that, that's another podcast for another day. I wish I could have one of these let's say a pay-per-view podcast where I can actually literally tell you what Ranger fans were whispering in my ear when I was sitting in the handicap section with the Marty Brodeur gear, because that's how I was able to fit in the seats. I had a friend that hooked me up who was in a wheelchair. He allowed me to take his seat and sit next to him so I could wear the goalie gear at Madison Square Garden. And then I ran into defenseman Alex Brooks in the middle of the game, and he's like, I'll take a picture with you. I have these pictures. It's funny.
That's funny. I've seen the pictures of you in the Brodeur gear at the game. I mean, that's like an all-time moment in this podcast's history 20 years before this podcast existed. So,
yeah.
I'll always be a fan of that.
Yeah, and there's actually, just truth be told, I got to find this. I forgot where it is. I don't think I've ever saw the footage. But we actually videotaped it with a camcorder. That whole scene going to the Blarney Rock or Blarney Stone, I forgot which one it was. And then we walked, and I walked in the gear, did our thing, and then there was a big fight after the game because what happened was a couple Ranger fans wanted to deck me after the game in the goalie gear, but my friends took care of business. And then the world-class ushers at security at Madison Square Garden helped usher me to the elevators because that's how they are. Why don't you come over with us? You'll be right on the street. You could go right home. You did nothing wrong. We just want you to be safe. Okay. You guys are world class. Thank you. And then I go down the elevator. In my Marty Brodeur gear, as soon as I opened up, there was a bunch of Japanese tourists there. And then I had to stop to take pictures with all these tourists, with all these Ranger fans looking on, yelling and screaming at me while I'm taking pictures with all these tourists for about 10 minutes. And I couldn't get out of the elevator. That's another story for another day.
Legendary. That's legendary.
Yeah. I mean, that's how far the rivalry has come. I mean, it's just, it's, yeah. But seeing all the comments on YouTube Live, happy Devil's Monday to you, Mike Rossi, Craig Best, everybody's Campbell from New Zealand is getting fired up all the way across the other side of the world. Yeah, I mean, Devils Rangers, I mean, that's how I met my wife at a Devils Rangers game in Newark. Met her in the parking lot for a game. You pregame, then you postgame in the parking lot. That's what we used to do. But now we do that at American Whiskey at 51 Edison Place across the street from Prudential Center next to Championship Plaza. Vinnie, we should get to our predictions. Our BetStamp.app predictions. BetStamp.app. Let me tell you about them. It is the Trivago sports betting because you don't know which one has the better payout for the same bet, but I can guarantee you it's BetStamp.app that will show you how to get there. Sorry, Vinny, I'm trying to get this whole thing situated here with the graphics. But why don't you talk about your picks as I'm trying to figure this thing out?
Yeah, so I went to betstamp.app, and I'm looking through, and I'm noticing the Devils aren't as big of favorites as I thought they were going to be against the New York Rangers, who were winning 3-0 going into the third period against the Edmonton Oilers in their most recent game, and they lost in regulation and got 0 points out of leading 3-0 going into the third. So it's one of those things where people are like, are the Rangers going to be nice and pissed off when they come onto the ice? Is it going to be a harder game than New Jersey's expecting? The answer to that is probably yes. But I'm still picking the Devils. I found them on the FanDuel Sportsbook at -114, and I believe they are going to beat the New York Rangers by a final score of 5-3.
Oh, 5-3. Oh, whoops. Let me change the graphic.
Oh,
for you.
6-3 then. 6-3 then.
Are you doing 6-3?
I'll go 6-3.
Right.
I view that as an omen. Mistakes aren't ever on accident. Coincidences aren't real.
All right. Now, when it's 5-3, you're probably going to text me and call a conspiracy theory.
No, if it ends up being 5-3, I'll just post a screenshot of my text saying 5-3. And if it ends up being 6-3, I'll be like, well, Sam Wu knew best.
Oh.
Either way, I win.
Well, I'm going to stick with I can't believe I remember my bet last night on the Let's Go Devils podcast Sunday edition. You did 1 point better than me. I'm at minus 115 points bet. I was looking at some of the lines through the BetStamp app, and I was kind of like, you know what? Devil's victory is a devil's victory, right? This is what we want. This is a happy problem. I'm going to go with 9-0 victory over the New York Rangers. It's going to be a demolishing game. They're going to run up the scoreboard. It's going to feel like the old college football days of 30 years ago where you have to run up the scoreboard to get the better power rankings or better rankings towards the end of the season for the national championship. But 9-0 victory over the New York Rangers. And you know what? So be it. If I'm wrong, I'm wrong. If I fall short, 8-0, I'm okay. I'm okay. I'm not gonna, go after Jack Hughes.
If the Devils win 9-0, I'll get a picture of Martin Brodeur's face tattooed on my rear end. And I'm not talking like a sick picture of him in his gear making a save. I'm talking the headshot he always used to take with like his dumb look on his face. Like I never understood that about Marty. I love Marty, but every single one of his profile pictures each NHL season sucked. He looked like he was like literally lost out of his mind in every picture. I'll get one of those tattooed on me if the Devils win this game 9-0.
Wow. And you heard it here, folks. Now, that's a bet outside of BetStamp app, but bet's a bet. And we've got a recording of it, and that should be interesting. And then we have our fellow tattoo artist, Beer Baron's wife, that could probably facilitate that when Vinnie Parise comes over to New Jersey on December 9th when the Devils take on the New York Islanders at American Whiskey. So those are our picks. Vinnie calling an audible, taking the 6-3 victory over the New York Rangers. I'm going to pick 9-0. And, hey, you want to challenge us? Stick around. Game Day Live, I'm sorry, Devils After Dark after the game, where we go over these picks. Because one of the cool things we do here on this podcast is we give our bet stamp of approval, but we hold ourselves accountable in the end. And Scotty takes the records all the time. So you never know. You never know who you could beat here on the Let's Go Devils podcast.
Yeah, I mean, that's interesting. I'm just so happy we're at a point where we both picked this team to win every single podcast.
Oh, I know.
Where last year we kind of started feeling dumb picking because we were picking them even in the midst of like a losing streak last year. And eventually I was like, why am I putting actual audio out there of me picking the Devils to win when they have 0% chance to win as much as I'm saying that they're going to, that we just started picking against them every show and we're right most of the time. So here we are. They've won 14 of their last 16 games and we're ready to rock.
Yeah.
No, it's got to be more than that now.
Any final thoughts, Vinny, before we go?
Yeah, my final thoughts is boo, stinky Rangers. Let's go Devils.
Oh, yeah. My final thoughts are just enjoy the game. Just enjoy the game. We'll be back after the game. Devils After Dark. Scotty at Sirius XM, Liquid Metal, and I will be recapping the game that was. Will it be a 9-0 victory or a 6-3 victory? It will be a 5-1 victory, is what Ramona Rice says of your New Jersey Devils. Keep it here. Keep it real. Till next time, let's go Devils.